All families have their fair share of drama, but mine was different. It was the kind of drama that had me stuck living in a basement and then coming back later to demolish the whole freaking house. Okay, so the snub. It wasn't a one time thing, more like a constant drizzle of you're not good enough that soaked into my skin, leaving me chilled to the bone. Growing up in the Winters household was like playing a game where all the rules were rigged. And Emily, my perfect little sister, always held all the winning cards. I remember birthdays. Emily's were extravagant affairs. Pony rides, bouncy castles, enough presents to fill a small warehouse. Mine, a store-bought cake, a half-hearted happy birthday, and maybe if I was lucky, a book. Not even a new one, usually something dusty from the attic that smells vaguely of mothballs and forgotten dreams. Emily needs a new dress for the school dance, Mom would say, her voice laced with a kind of breathless excitement that was always reserved for Emily's needs, Emily's wants, Emily's everything. Isla, you can just wear that old one from last year. It still fits, doesn't it? It always still fit, of course, because I was expected to be grateful for hand-me-downs, for leftovers, for the scraps of attention and affection that Emily didn't deem worthy of her golden child status. And Emily? Oh, she played the part perfectly. The pouty lips, the dramatic sighs, the, but mom, I need it. That always seemed to work its magic on our parents. She was the princess, the star, the sun around which our family orbited. I was the asteroid, the forgotten, insignificant lump of rock that no one really noticed, except when I was in the way, when I was inconvenient, when I was just there. Then came the renovations, the grand plan to transform our slightly drab but perfectly functional house into something worthy of Emily's magnificence, apparently. They talked about it for months, my parents, their voices filled with a kind of manic excitement that was usually reserved for, Emily. We're going to create a dream room for Emily, Mom gushed, her eyes sparkling with a fervor that was never directed at me. A custom-designed haven fit for a princess. And me? Oh, I was an afterthought, a footnote, a problem to be solved. We're not sure what to do about your room, Isla, Dad said, his voice hesitant, his eyes avoiding mine. The budget is a bit tight. We might have to improvise. Improvise, that was their code word for shove you in the basement. And that's exactly what they did. They converted the basement, a dark, damp space that smells vaguely of mildew and forgotten dreams. Yes, the same attic where my birthday books came from. Into my new bedroom. No windows, no heating, no anything that resembled comfort or basic human decency. It's cozy, Mom said, her voice strained, her smile unconvincing. And it's private. You'll have your own space, your own dungeon. Okay, she didn't actually say dungeon, but that's what it felt like. A cold, dark, isolating space where I was expected to be grateful. Grateful for being shoved aside, for being treated as less than, for being the unwanted, unloved, and, let's just say, not exactly the apple of their eye daughter. But I wasn't grateful, not even a little bit. I was angry, resentful, and let's just say I was starting to formulate a plan that involved escaping, succeeding, and showing them exactly what they'd thrown away. They thought I was nothing. They were wrong, so wrong. I was Isla Winters, and I was about to show them what happens when you underestimate the girl in the basement. It wasn't exactly a five-star hotel, more like a dungeon. A cold, damp, dimly lit dungeon where I spent my teenage years feeling like a forgotten princess, locked in a tower. Only instead of a handsome prince, I had a rusty old radiator that coughed and sputtered more than it actually heated the room. The isolation was the worst part. Upstairs, life went on. Emily's laughter, Mom's phone calls, Dad's booming voice as he watched whatever sports game was on it, all filtered down through the floorboards, a constant reminder that I was separate, excluded, less than. The winters were brutal. The tiny basement windows, more like slits in the foundation really, offered little protection from the icy drafts that snaked through the room, chilling me to the bone. I'd pile on blankets, sweaters, anything I could find to ward off the cold, but it was never enough. I'd wake up shivering, my breath misting in the air, my nose numb, my fingers stiff and aching. And the dampness, it was like living in a perpetual drizzle. My clothes felt clammy, books smelled musty, and a thin layer of condensation seemed to cling to everything, a constant reminder of the general unsuitability of the space for human habitation. But it wasn't just the physical discomfort. It was the emotional weight of it all, the constant reminder that I wasn't valued, that I wasn't Emily. Emily with her sunny bedroom, her walk-in closet, her everything that I didn't have. I spent hours down there, in that basement, reading, studying, dreaming of a life beyond those walls. A life where I wasn't an afterthought, where I wasn't the girl in the basement. I read books about successful women, entrepreneurs, artists, anyone who'd defied the odds, who'd risen above their circumstances, who'd proven that you didn't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth to achieve greatness. And as I read, as I studied, as I stewed in my own resentment and ambition, a determination grew within me, a fierce, unwavering determination to escape, to prove them wrong, to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. They thought I was nothing. They were wrong, so wrong. I was Isla Winters, and I was going to make them regret the day they ever banished me to the basement. Okay, so the great escape. It wasn't exactly a Hollywood movie scene, with a dramatic soundtrack and a slow-motion walk towards the sunset. More like a hurried, slightly awkward shuffle out the back door with a duffel bag and a heart full of, let's just say, it wasn't exactly gratitude. I turned 18, the magic number, the key to my freedom. No more parental control, no more forced basement dwelling, no more Emily's perfect life in my face. I packed my meager belongings, the few clothes that weren't hand-me-downs, the books I'd managed to accumulate over the years, the scraps of a life that had been deemed unworthy of a proper bedroom. I didn't say goodbye, not really, just a mumbled, "I'm leaving," as I slipped out the back door, the duffel bag bumping against my leg, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and, let's just say, it wasn't exactly sadness. The world outside was overwhelming. Bright, noisy, full of people who didn't know me, who didn't care about my basement woes, who were just living their lives, oblivious to my little drama. I had no plan, no money, no clue what I was doing. But I had ambition. A burning, fiery ambition that fueled my every step, that kept me going when the fear threatened to overwhelm me, that basically screamed, "I'm going to prove them wrong." I found a room, a tiny, dingy room, in a shared apartment with questionable plumbing, and a landlord who looked like he could be a character in a crime novel. It wasn't the Ritz, but it was mine. My own space, my own escape from the basement. I got a job, actually, several jobs. Waitressing, cleaning, dog walking, anything that paid the rent and kept me fed. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't exactly my dream career, but it was a start. The days were long, the work was tiring, and the constant struggle to make ends meet was exhausting. But I never gave up. I kept my eye on the prize, the dream, the vision of a future where I wasn't just Isla Winters, the girl from the basement. I took night classes, squeezing in business courses between shifts, learning about finance, marketing, real estate, anything that could help me build my empire, my kingdom, my escape from the life they'd tried to confine me to. And slowly, gradually, things started to change. I got a better job, a small apartment, a sense of control over my own destiny. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. And as I looked back at the basement, the cold, damp, isolating space that had once defined my life, I couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. I'd escaped, I defied them, and I was just getting started. Okay, so the spark. It wasn't a lightning bolt, not a sudden epiphany. More like a slow burn, a growing fascination, a realization that bricks and mortar could be more than just walls and a roof. They could be a way out. It started with a book, actually, a dusty old book I found in a used bookstore, tucked away in a corner, its pages filled with stories of real estate moguls, property tycoons, and people who'd made fortunes flipping houses and building empires. I was intrigued. This wasn't just about buying and selling. It was about transformation, taking something old, something neglected, something like my basement, and turning it into something beautiful, something valuable, something worthy of admiration. I started researching, devouring every book, every article, every piece of information I could find about real estate. I learned about market trends, property values, negotiation tactics, the whole nine yards. It was like a whole new world opened up to me, a world of possibilities, a world where I could build my own kingdom. I started small, of course. No grand mansions, no luxury condos, just a tiny rundown apartment that I bought with my meager savings and a loan from a surprisingly trusting credit union. It was a fixer-upper, to say the least. Peeling paint, leaky faucets, a general air of neglect. But I saw potential. I saw the bones of a beautiful space, the possibility of creating something better than the basement I'd escaped from. I spent weeks, months even, working on that apartment, learning as I went, making mistakes, getting my hands dirty, but slowly transforming it into something pretty damn impressive. And then I sold it. For a profit, a small profit, but a profit nonetheless. It was exhilarating. Proof that I could do this, that I could build something from nothing. That was the spark. The moment I realized that real estate wasn't just about bricks and mortar, it was about power, control. And let's just say it was a hell of a lot more satisfying than waiting tables or cleaning toilets. I was hooked. And I knew this was just the beginning. Okay, so the hustle. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't glamorous, and it definitely wasn't easy. But it was necessary. I had a fire in my belly, a burning ambition that wouldn't let me rest, wouldn't let me settle for anything less than my own version of success. I was juggling like a circus performer with too many balls in the air, waitressing at night, cleaning houses on the weekends, tutoring kids after school, anything to pay the bills, to keep my head above water, to fuel my real estate obsession. Sleep? What was sleep? I functioned on caffeine and sheer willpower. My days a blur of activity. My nights a frantic scramble to catch up on coursework, to analyze market trends, to basically become a one-woman real estate machine. I was learning, constantly learning, not just from books and classes, but from the streets, from the people, from the hustle itself. I learned how to negotiate with contractors, how to spot a good deal, how to hustle. I wasn't afraid of hard work, of getting my hands dirty, of doing whatever it took to get ahead. I was driven, focused, and let's just say I wasn't exactly known for my social life. But I didn't care. I had a goal, a vision, a burning desire to prove them wrong, to show them that the girl they'd banished to the basement was more than just an afterthought, a burden, a problem to be solved. I was Isla Winters, and I was building my empire, brick by brick, deal by deal, hustle by. You get the picture. It wasn't easy, of course. There were setbacks, disappointments, moments when I wanted to throw in the towel, to crawl back to the basement, and to just give up. But I didn't. I couldn't. I had too much to prove. Too much of myself invested in this dream. And as I hustled, as I learned, as I slowly but surely climbed the real estate ladder, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Not just because I was succeeding, but because I was doing it on my own terms, without their help, without their anything. I was proving them wrong, one deal at a time, one hustle at a time, one you get the picture. And as I looked back at the girl who'd left the basement with nothing but a duffel bag and a dream, I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. I'd come a long way, and I knew this was just the beginning. Okay, so the first deal. It wasn't $1 million mansion, not a sprawling estate, more like a slightly worse for wear bungalow in a not so great neighborhood. But it was mine. My first real project, my first chance to prove myself, my first step towards building my empire. I found it through a tip from a fellow hustler, a guy I'd met at a real estate seminar who looked like he lived 1,000 lives and had the stories to prove it. He called it a diamond in the rough, but honestly, it looked more like a lump of coal that had been kicked around a parking lot for a few weeks. But I saw potential. Beneath the peeling paint, the overgrown weeds, the general air of neglect, I saw the bones of a decent house, a family home, a place where someone could actually live and maybe even be happy. I bought it, of course, with every penny I'd saved, every loan I could scrape together, every ounce of courage I could muster. It was a risk, a gamble, a leap of faith that I could actually pull this off. The renovation was, let's just say it wasn't exactly a walk in the park. There were unexpected problems, hidden costs, moments when I wanted to. Let's just say I expanded my vocabulary of curse words significantly, but I persevered. I learned how to negotiate with contractors, how to haggle with suppliers, how to basically become a one-woman construction crew. I painted, I tiled, I I even learned how to fix a leaky toilet, which let's be honest was a skill I never thought I'd need. And slowly, gradually, the house started to take shape. The peeling paint was replaced with a fresh coat, the overgrown weeds were tamed, the whole place started to look livable. Even dare I say it is beautiful. And then the open house, the moment of truth, the time to see if all my hard work, my sweat, my sanity had paid off. People came, surprisingly. They walked through the house, their eyes widening, their smiles growing, their general impression being, wow, this is actually nice. And then he walked in, Adrian Blackwood, tall, imposing, with a gaze that could melt glaciers, and a suit that probably cost more than my entire budget for the renovation. He was a real estate mogul, a legend in the industry, a man who could make or break a deal with a single phone call. I watched him as he surveyed the house, his eyes scanning every detail, his expression unreadable. He was a shark, a predator, a man who clearly didn't belong in my little bungalow. You did this? He asked, his voice a deep baritone that sent a shiver down my spine. Yes, I said, my voice barely a whisper, my confidence suddenly wavering under his intense gaze. He nodded, his eyes still scanning the room. Impressive? He said, his tone, it wasn't exactly enthusiastic, more like grudgingly approving. You're Isla Winters, he stated, more than asked. I'd clearly been on his radar. I am, I confirmed, trying to project an air of confidence I didn't quite feel. He looked at me, his eyes narrowed, his expression assessing. You have potential, he said, his voice still devoid of any real warmth. But you're playing in the little leagues. If you want to be a real player, you need to step up your game. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding, my mind reeling. He was right, of course, but his dismissal, his general air of superiority only fueled my ambition. I was Isla Winters. And I was just getting started. Okay, so the rivalry. It wasn't a playground squabble, with hair pulling and name calling. This was a high-stakes battle, a clash of ambition, a war fought with spreadsheets and legal documents. Adrian Blackwood, the real estate titan, the man who dismissed me with a flick of his wrist, was about to learn that I wasn't just another newcomer to be brushed aside. It started with a building, a prime piece of real estate in the heart of the city, a crumbling old warehouse, ripe for redevelopment, a developer's dream. We both wanted it, obviously. Him with his deep pockets and his army of lawyers, and me with my determination and my slightly less deep pockets. The bidding war was fierce, a back and forth of offers and counteroffers, a chess match with millions of dollars at stake. Adrian, confident in his power and influence, assumed he'd win. He underestimated me, of course. He hadn't factored in my stubbornness, my creativity, and my willingness to, let's just say I wasn't afraid to play dirty. I dug up dirt, the kind that makes headlines, the kind that can tarnish a reputation, especially in the world of high-stakes real estate. Nothing illegal, of course, just a few inconvenient truths about Adrian's past dealings, a few skeletons in his corporate closet, a few things that made him a little less appealing to the sellers. And then I made my move. I didn't just offer more money, I offered a partnership, a collaboration, a way for the sellers to not only profit from the sale, but also to be a part of the redevelopment project, to have a say in the future of the building, to basically become my allies. It was a bold move, a risky move, a move that Adrian hadn't anticipated. And it worked. The sellers, impressed by my vision, my audacity, chose me. They chose the underdog, the newcomer, the girl who'd once been relegated to the basement. Adrian was furious, of course. He called me, his voice a mixture of rage, and let's just say it wasn't exactly admiration. You outsmarted me, he growled, his tone a mixture of disbelief and maybe a hint of grudging respect. I did, I said, my voice calm, my tone, let's just say it was a little bit smug. You're playing a dangerous game, Isla Winters, he warned, his voice low, his tone menacing. Maybe, I said, my smile widening, but it's a game I intend to win. And with that, I hung up, leaving him to stew in his own frustration, his own growing fascination with the girl who'd just beaten him at his own game. The rivalry was on, and I knew it was just getting started. The empire wasn't built in a day, more like brick by brick, deal by deal, hustle by hustle. But it was growing, expanding, becoming, becoming something I never could have imagined back in my basement days. I wasn't just flipping houses anymore. I was buying apartment buildings, developing commercial properties, investing in land basically, anything that had the potential to turn a profit, to grow my wealth, to solidify my position in the real estate world. My portfolio was expanding, my influence was growing, and my bank account was looking pretty damn impressive. I was no longer the underdog, the newcomer, the girl who'd been dismissed with a flick of the wrist. I was Isla Winters, and I was a force to be reckoned with. The invitations started coming, of course. Charity galas, exclusive parties, the kind of events where people wore designer clothes, sipped champagne, and basically talked about how rich and successful they were. It was a different world, a far cry from my basement days, my waitressing gigs, my life before the empire. But I navigated it, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. I learned the rules, the unspoken codes, the art of being a player in the world of high society. I wasn't there to make friends, not really. I was there to network, to make deals, to expand my empire. And I did. I met investors, developers, architects, the kind of people who could help me take my business to the next level, the kind of people who used to look down their noses at me. But not anymore. I was Isla Winters, and I was a name that commanded respect, a name that even Adrian Blackwood had to acknowledge. He watched me, of course. From a distance, at first, his eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable. But I could feel his gaze, his growing fascination with the girl who dared to challenge him, who dared to succeed. And as my empire grew, as my influence expanded, as I became a player in the world he ruled, I knew the game was about to change. Okay, so the palace. It wasn't just a house, more like a symbol, a giant screw you monument to my past, a testament to my success, a place where I could finally feel like the queen of my own damn kingdom. It was the mansion, the one my parents had obsessed over, the one they drooled over in real estate magazines, the one they'd never been able to afford. It was sprawling, extravagant, with enough bedrooms and bathrooms to house a small army and a backyard that looked like something out of a fairy tale. I bought it, of course, cash, no mortgage, no loans, no need to ask anyone for permission. It was mine, all mine. A giant middle finger to the past, to the basement, to the family that had never believed in me. The renovation was, let's just say it wasn't exactly a DIY project. I hired the best architects, the most talented designers, the kind of people who could transform a house into a palace. I spared no expense, of course. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, a swimming pool that could probably rival the one at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It was opulent, extravagant, a testament to my success, my power, my ability to buy anything I damn well pleased. And then, the grand reveal. I invited them, of course. My parents, Emily, the whole dysfunctional family that had dismissed me, underestimated me, and basically treated me like a second-class citizen. They arrived, their faces a mixture of awe and, let's just say it wasn't exactly happiness. They gawked at the marble floors, the soaring ceilings, the sheer opulence of it all. Isla, my mother stammered, her eyes wide, her voice laced with a hint of, let's just say it wasn't exactly maternal pride. This is incredible. It is, isn't it? I said, my smile widening, my eyes sparkling with a mixture of triumph and maybe a touch of malice. How did you? My father began, his voice trailing off, his expression a mixture of confusion and maybe a hint of resentment. I worked hard, I said, my voice firm, my tone. Let's just say it wasn't exactly apologetic. I built my own empire. I created my own success, and I bought this palace with my own money. Emily, my perfect little sister, the one who'd always had everything handed to her on a silver platter, just stared, her eyes wide, her mouth agape. Let's just say she looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. I led them through the house, room by room, showcasing the luxury, the extravagance, the everything they'd never had, the everything they'd denied me. This is my bedroom, I said, gesturing to a suite that was probably bigger than their entire house. It has a balcony, a fireplace, and a bathroom that's bigger than most people's living rooms. I watched their faces, their expressions, a mixture of awe, envy, and maybe a touch of shame. They were realizing finally what they'd thrown away, what they'd what they'd missed out on. But it wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. This palace, this symbol of my success, was my way of saying I did it. I escaped, and I won. It was my way of reclaiming my power, my worth, my place in the world. I wasn't the girl from the basement anymore. I was Isla Winters, the queen of my own damn castle. And as I stood there, in my palace, surrounded by luxury, my family gawking at my success, I couldn't help but feel a surge of triumph. I'd done it. I'd proved them wrong. And I'd finally found my own kingdom. Okay, so karma, it's a funny thing, you know? Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes it hits you like a ton of bricks. And in the case of my parents and sister, well, let's just say the bricks were coming, and they were coming fast. Remember those renovations? The ones that were so important, so crucial to Emily's happiness? The ones that had banished me to the basement? Turns out they weren't exactly a sound investment. More like a money pit, a financial black hole, a disaster waiting to happen. They'd overspent, of course. They'd cut corners, they'd made bad deals, they'd basically managed to turn a perfectly good house into a money-sucking monster that was threatening to swallow them whole. The whispers started, of course, the kind of hushed conversations that circulate in small towns, the kind that eventually reaches everyone's ears. The Winters are in trouble, they'd say. They're losing their house. They're basically broke. The irony wasn't lost on me, of course. The renovations that had forced me into the basement, the renovations that were so crucial to Emily's princess life, were now the very thing that was destroying their lives. And Emily? Oh, Emily. The spoiled princess, the golden child, the one who'd always had everything handed to her on a silver platter, was now facing the reality of not having everything. Her designer clothes, her expensive vacations, her pampered existence was crumbling around her. They tried to contact me, of course. The phone call started, late at night, their voices a mixture of desperation and, let's just say, it wasn't exactly humility. Isla, darling, my mother would say, her voice strained. Her tone, let's just say it wasn't exactly maternal warmth. We need your help. We're in a difficult situation. A difficult situation? I'd echo, my voice flat, my tone. Let's just say it wasn't exactly sympathetic. You mean like living in a basement? She'd stammer, make excuses, try to guilt trip me. But I wasn't having it. I'd spent too many years being the doormat, the pushover, the girl who always put their needs before her own. We always loved you, Isla, my father would say, his voice gruff, his tone. Let's just say it wasn't exactly convincing. We made some mistakes. Mistakes? I'd repeat, my voice cold, my tone. Let's just say it wasn't exactly forgiving. You mean like banishing me to the basement? Prioritizing Emily's wants over my needs? Treating me like I was less than human? They'd try to explain, to justify, to basically rewrite history. But I wasn't buying it. I knew the truth, and they knew I knew. And then they saw me, on TV, in the newspapers, everywhere. Isla Winters, the real estate mogul, the billionaire, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing. Their shock was palpable. Their disbelief was, let's just say it was almost comical. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that the girl they'd discarded, the girl they'd underestimated, the girl they'd basically treated like dirt had become so successful, so powerful, so wealthy. And the phone calls intensified, their pleas more desperate, their tone more, let's just say it was a lot less condescending. They needed me. They needed my help. They needed my money. Okay, so the alliance, it wasn't a merger, not a hostile takeover, you know? More like a meeting of the minds, a clash of ambition that somehow, let's just say it sparked something more than just a business deal. Adrian, the man who'd once dismissed me, who'd underestimated me, who'd basically tried to crush me, was now intrigued. He saw something in me, a spark, a fire, a determination that mirrored his own. We started working together, cautiously at first, testing the waters, circling each other like two sharks, sizing each other up. But there was a respect there, a grudging admiration, a recognition of each other's strengths. He was the strategist, the master planner, the one with the big picture vision. I was the executor, the one who got things done, the one who wasn't afraid to roll up her sleeves and get her hands dirty. We complimented each other, challenged each other, pushed each other to be better, to be bolder, to be more than we could be alone. The deals got bigger, the projects more ambitious, the profits more substantial. We were a force to be reckoned with, a power couple in the making. Let's just say we were making a lot of people very nervous. But it wasn't just about the business. There was something else brewing, something more personal. A connection, a spark. Let's just say the air between us was starting to feel a little charged. We'd clash, of course, argue, debate, challenge each other's ideas. But it was never personal. It was about the project, the deal, the shared ambition that drove us both. And then there were the moments, the quiet moments, the stolen glances, the times when the air between us crackled with something more than just professional respect. We were both guarded, of course. He with his reputation as a ruthless businessman, and me with my past, my family, my everything that had made me who I was. But the walls were coming down, slowly, gradually, as we worked together, as we started to see each other, not just as rivals, not just as partners, but as something more. And as I looked at him, the man who'd once dismissed me, the man who was now my ally, my confidant, my maybe even something more, I couldn't help but wonder, where would this lead? What would happen when the business was done, when the deals were closed, when the only thing left was us? Okay, so the beggars, they came to my palace, of course, not in carriages, not with fanfare, but in a rusty old car, their faces etched with worry. Their clothes, let's just say they weren't exactly designer labels anymore. They stood at my gate, my parents and Emily, looking like they'd been dragged through a hedge backwards. They'd lost the house, of course. The foreclosure had gone through, the auction had happened, and now they were homeless. I watched them through the security camera. My expression, let's just say it wasn't exactly overflowing with sympathy. They'd made their bed, hadn't they? They'd chosen Emily. They'd chosen the renovations. They'd chosen to discard me. The intercom crackled. Isla, my mother's voice pleaded, it's us. Can we talk? I pressed the button, my voice cold, my tone, let's just say it wasn't exactly welcoming. What do you want? We need your help, my father said, his voice gruff, his pride clearly wounded. We have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I said, my voice flat, my resolve unwavering. Isla, please, Emily begged, her voice cracking, her princess facade finally crumbling. We're family. Family? I scoffed. You mean the family that shoved me in the basement? The family that treated me like I was nothing? They tried to explain, to apologize, to basically beg for my forgiveness, my help, my money. But I wasn't interested. I'd spent too many years being the victim, the afterthought, the girl who always put their needs before her own. I'm sorry, I said, my voice firm, my tone final, but I'm not that girl anymore. And with that, I pressed the button again, cutting off their pleas, their excuses, their pathetic attempts to weasel their way back into my life. They stood there for a moment, their faces a mixture of shock, disbelief, and let's just say it wasn't exactly gratitude. Then they turned and walked away, their heads bowed, their shoulders slumped, their dreams of a comfortable life shattered. I watched them go. My expression, let's just say it wasn't exactly filled with remorse. They'd made their choices, and now they were facing the consequences. Okay, so the demolition. It wasn't just about revenge, more like a symbolic cleansing, a way to erase the past, to bury the memories, to finally move on. I bought the house, of course, at the auction no less, outbidding a few unsuspecting families who probably thought they were getting a steal. They didn't know the history, the baggage that came with that house. I didn't move in, of course. I didn't even bother to step inside. I just hired a demolition crew, a team of guys with bulldozers and wrecking balls, the kind of guys who could make a house disappear. I watched from a distance, of course, from my palace, my kingdom, my place of triumph. I watched as the bulldozers roared, as the walls crumbled, as the house that had once been my prison, my symbol of oppression, was reduced to rubble. It was cathartic, liberating, a way to finally close the chapter on my past, to say goodbye to the basement, to the snubs, to the family that had never truly seen me. And as the dust settled, as the rubble was cleared away, as the space where the house had once stood was transformed into a blank canvas, I couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. This wasn't just the end of something. It was the beginning of something new, a new chapter, a new kingdom. My kingdom, built on my own terms, with my own hands, with my own damn determination. And as I looked out at the empty space, the possibilities stretching before me, I knew I was finally free. Adrian stood beside me, his hand on my shoulder. His presence, let's just say it wasn't unwelcome. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He understood. He'd watched me. He'd challenged me. He'd seen me at my best and my worst. And maybe, just maybe, there was something more there. Something beyond the rivalry, beyond the partnership, beyond the beyond the business. But that was a story for another day. For now, I was content to stand there, in my kingdom, the queen of my own destiny, the girl who'd risen from the basement to build her own empire. And as I looked out at the future, the possibilities stretching before me, I couldn't help but smile. I'd done it. I'd won. And I was just getting started.